forget it, as a matter of fact.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Schieffer in New York with a Persian Gulf update. The Israeli cabinet says no decision yet on whether it will retaliate against Iraq. More U.S. anti-missile Patriot missiles have arrived in Israel. They'll be manned by Americans, and the Allied battering of Baghdad goes on by warplane and cruise missile. In the Persian Gulf off Kuwait, the battleship Wisconsin has been test firing its massive guns, which are capable of dropping killer shells on targets in Kuwait. And the U.S. battleship Missouri worked hot and heavy today, firing more Tomahawk cruise missiles at targets in Kuwait and inside Iraq itself. The Navy says now more than 150 Tomahawks have been fired in the last 3 days. Tel Aviv today is recovering from its second Iraqi Scud missile attack in as many days. At least 3 Scuds hit home, injuring nearly 20 people and inflicting some damage. Again, conventional warheads were used. While a U.S. official says that Israel has told the Bush administration it will not retaliate for this newest attack, Israel's cabinet a short time ago refused to rule out an Israeli counterattack. At the Pentagon, Jim Stewart has more now on the deployment of those U.S. Patriot missiles in Israel and how this could affect the war situation. Jim?
Bob, 3 days into this war, the Pentagon is still so concerned about the Iraqi Scud missile threat to Israel that Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney said this afternoon that American troops are being sent to Israel to man a Patriot advanced missile system. That's the latest in U.S. anti-missile weaponry.
As an interim step, we are deploying additional Patriots out of Europe that will be manned by U.S. personnel. They are arriving in Israel today and should be operational within the next few hours.
And meanwhile, the air war does continue unabated, and Colin Powell, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said this afternoon that for the first time now, we're starting to see a shift in priorities to Iraq's ground troops.
Thanks.
There has begun a shift from the first set of targets from in the Baghdad area as well as the airfield and air defense complex, and we'll now begin concentrating on the Republican Guard and some of the forces in theater.
Bob, this shift could indicate that it's a prelude to the Allied invasion of Kuwait, or it could just mean that we're trying to get the best of the Iraqi troops so that even if the war were to end tomorrow, Saddam Hussein would be a military cripple.
Thank you, Jim. Let's get the latest now in Israel, and for that we go to Tom Fenton. Tom?
Bob, the sirens have just gone off in Tel Aviv. It's the first alert of what I suspect will be many this evening. It lasted for about 3 minutes. The all clear has just been sounded, but Israel, as you can imagine, is on a hair trigger alert, ready for just about anything, and always, of course, with the possibility in mind that a Scud missile could be armed with a chemical warhead, and of course, each time we get the siren, people suit up and put on their gas masks.
Thank you, Tom, and we'll come back to you, of course, when there's more definite news. Coming up also, we'll have a Pentagon briefing at 3:30 Eastern Time, and of course the CBS Evening News tonight, and then a 1-hour special report on the Gulf War at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News in New York. Now back to college basketball.
In trying to make an artistic statement, one should be careful.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News New York, with an update on the Persian Gulf. We're coming on the air here because a briefing is about to get underway at the Pentagon where we expect some new details on today's developments in the Gulf region. There was another scare in Israel just a while ago. Air raid sirens went off in Tel Aviv for about a half hour, but the all clear was sounded just a short time later, and there is no sign of any attack. Back at the Pentagon, we're going to hear from Lieutenant General Tom Kelly, who is the Director of Operations for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. First, let's go to David Martin, our Pentagon correspondent. David, what do we expect to hear here today?
Bob, I'm going to let them talk right now.
Then I will once again turn it over to the two experts from the Joint Staff who will be able to answer some of your operational questions. Let me discuss, first of all, the question of Patriots to Israel. The Department of Defense is making a temporary deployment of U.S. Patriot air defense units to Israel. This deployment has been ordered in the context of the United States security commitment to Israel and is specifically intended to assist Israel in its defense against missile attacks from Iraq. Israel has tried from the beginning to stay out of this conflict. By attacking the civilian population of Israel, Iraq is trying to widen the war. These attacks further demonstrate how dangerous and ruthless the Iraqi leadership is. We also believe that the deployment of these Patriot units will help Israel maintain the extremely positive posture that it has kept in this crisis. The Patriot deployment is part of our overall approach to defeat the threat of Scud missiles from Iraq. I can't go into the operational details, obviously, but we're dealing with the Scud threat by trying to destroy them before the launchers can be dispersed, before the missiles can be launched, after they're launched, and by providing early warning for the civil population. Secretary Cheney said just a short while ago on returning from Camp David that the Scud threat continues to be a high priority concern for us. We've knocked out part of Iraq's ability to launch Scuds, and there were fewer last night than the night before, but it continues to be a threat that we're working very hard to overcome. There's no one single answer to the Scud threat, but our very active and serious efforts, as well as those of our coalition partners, will bring the threat down drastically and as quickly as possible eliminate it. Now, the units that we're providing to Israel, both Patriot fire units and the crews to operate them, began to arrive today. The first units are now operational. The decision to have U.S. troops man the Patriots is an extraordinary step, but it's been taken in view of the unconscionable attacks on Israel. I have some other announcements, but are there any questions specifically about Patriots? And then we'll deal with the Scud questions later. Katie?
When you say it's a temporary arrangement, how long will it take for the U.S. personnel who have been deployed to Israel to train the Israelis? And is that, in fact, what the goal is?
Okay, there's two separate components to the Patriot support. The Israelis have purchased Patriot units, and they were there before. And there's a training program going on now as to when the Israeli forces, the Israeli Defense Forces, will be fully trained up to man those Patriots. That's an operational detail that I can't discuss. Now, the Patriots that are arriving and that became operational today, the crews to operate them came with them. And U.S. crews will be there to operate them and to assist Israeli forces in operating them as well. So, in other words, what we have sent to Israel that's arrived there today is a fully manned operational system.
How many U.S. troops are involved?
Let's just take one question at a time, and I'll point to you.
How many U.S. military troops will be deployed temporarily to Israel?
I'm not going to go into specific numbers. Dennis?
That was my question.
Okay.
Is this the first time U.S. troops have been deployed on Israeli soil?
Oh, well, the U.S. troops are U.S. military personnel are present in almost every country with which we have diplomatic relations. There are Marine Guards, there are defense attachés, and so forth.
But in a potential combat role?
Well, first time is always a risky one. Let me look into that. I'm not positive of that. Brian?
Will American forces be used to man the Israeli-owned Patriot missile system?
No, these American forces are. We got a program to train Israeli Defense Forces. That training program is going on now. That's a separate question. These Patriot batteries or fire units that arrive today will be manned by primarily by U.S. troops. Bart?
Are the numbers of fire units being sent sufficient to protect the Israeli coastal cities?
The units that are being sent will help to further defend Israel. There's no such thing as a foolproof defense. To anything. So that's a very, very difficult question to answer. Michael?
Pete, two questions. You described this as a temporary deployment. Does that mean they're to be withdrawn after the war is over? Two, you mentioned
the answer to your first part of your question is yes.
Two, you mentioned that we're sharing intelligence information with Israel or providing warning of Scud launchings.
Right.
Did we begin doing that for the first time yesterday, and or have we done this before? Was that the first time that this has been done, and when was that arrangement worked out?
Okay, yes, it's the first time it's been done because there's never been a situation before where Iraqi missiles have been fired at Israel.
No, we might have had an arrangement prior to the firing we would have agreed to. Was the arrangement to provide warning of an attack only worked out after they were hit by the Scud missiles in reaction to that?
No, it was worked out before, but I can't get into any details on when it was worked out.
Mr. Hussein had been threatening Israel for 5 months. Why now are the Patriots just being in place at this point, and was any preparation, or did the Pentagon not anticipate this happening?
Well, first of all, as I said before in answer to Katie Couric's question, there is a sort of two-pronged approach to the Patriot system. One is the missile units that we're sending and training Israeli crews on, and that has been underway for quite some time. The specific units that arrived and became operational today are being sent there at the request of the Israeli government, and you would have to ask them about the timing.
When was the request made, and who decided to send the units?
Request was made just very recently. The decision obviously was made at the highest levels of the government.
Pete, concerning the Patriots, were those that were deployed scheduled to be deployed as part of Desert Storm? And will they weaken U.S. efforts in the Persian Gulf and areas of defending Saudi Arabia and Bahrain?
No, these units are based in Europe.
They were not scheduled for redeployment down to the Gulf?
No. Keenan?
Pete, going back to that prior shipment of Patriots, why is it that they were not up and operational prior to the war?
I didn't say they weren't operational.
Why were there not crews sent to man the Patriots?
Sorry?
Why were there not crews sent earlier?
Because in the early agreement, that was an arrangement where the Israelis would purchase the Patriot systems and have their folks trained up to operate them. And that's a training program that's going on now. And that was all worked out earlier.
But in view of the fact that the threat was so clear and so imminent, why did they... Did they turn down a chance to have American
You'll have
crews?
to, as for the Israeli government decisions, I speak for the U.S. government. You'll have to ask them.
Pete, there was more air raid sirens in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem today. Has the Pentagon detected any new Scud firings or missile firings today?
Oh, that's off the Patriot question. Let me hold that for General Kelly. Any other Patriot questions?
Are you concerned that the Jordanians could become involved if a Patriot destroys a Scud over Jordanian airspace? One of the things they've said that would bring them into the conflict.
That's awfully hypothetical. I'll just stay off of that one.
Have you got any idea how long it takes to train crews like the Israelis for the Patriot missile? How long does that training take?
I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that
You
one.
didn't say so, but are these the most advanced Patriots that we have?
That we're sending in today?
Yeah.
Yes.
And do you have any numbers on them?
No, we won't be giving out specific numbers. That gets into an operational detail.
Were there consultations with our Arab allies before the decision to send?
We don't discuss the kind of negotiations and discussions we have in between governments. Jim?
Had there been any offer by the United States before the beginning of hostilities to send a U.S. manned Patriot system into Israel?
Again, same answer to the previous question. That gets into sort of private government-to-government discussions.
Yes, in terms of how well the Patriots work, can you give us any more information on the two that were unintentionally fired in Saudi Arabia earlier?
I don't have any further information on that. That's under investigation right now, and I don't believe the investigation's complete.
Pete, you said they were moved from Europe. Was there consultation with the European allies, and will that weaken posture in Europe?
No, it won't weaken the posture anywhere. What it does is it assists Israel in its air defenses. And again, all this business about consultations and that sort of stuff, those are, in normal times with our normal Pentagon press corps, I would say you'll have to refer that question to the State Department. We just don't discuss government-to-government discussions. Let me take a few more and then I need to move on.
Given that there's a concern that there might be chemical warheads on some of these missiles, and given that the Patriot missile that shot down the Scud already did it 1,000 feet over the ground, is there any concern that it may actually prove dangerous to shoot down a chemical warhead while it's in the air?
I think that the best consensus of military folks here in the Pentagon is that, number one, we of course don't know for certain whether the Iraqis can in fact put a chemical warhead on a Scud missile. We know they have the ability to field chemical weapons. They did so in the war with Iran. We know they have the ability to launch Scuds, but we don't know whether they can put the two together. Clearly, we have to operate on the assumption that they can. But the second part of the equation is, I think the military will tell you that the best thing to do is to try to shoot a missile out of the sky before it lands on you.
Two other quick questions on the Patriot. The initial batteries that were already in Israel, and you mentioned this training program. Is this training program being conducted by U.S. military personnel
Yes.
or by Raytheon? And by military personnel?
Well, it's probably a government contract. I don't know how much of it is government contract representatives and how much of it is U.S. military, but it's a part of an agreement we have with Israel to provide the training.
So you don't know, in other words. I mean,
in other words, I don't know. That's right.
Wait. One other quick question. I don't think you really answered it when I asked you before. Is the goal of the U.S. to train the Israelis as quickly as possible so the U.S. military people can leave?
Oh, yes. Yes, sure. Yes.
Pete, do you have any sense that this is just the beginning, that additional U.S. troops may be sent to help defend Israel?
I have no feel for, I've heard nothing, no discussion of anything beyond the specific Patriot question. Now, I've got some other announcements, and I don't want to hold General Kelly and Admiral McConnell here for a long time. The other thing I need to talk to you about here briefly before we get into the operational details is the fact that the President has signed the Presidential Ready Reserve Call-Up Authority. That's the next level of authority to call up reservists and members of the National Guard. We've discussed this here over the last several briefings that we've had with you, but the President has now signed the executive order delegating to the Secretary of Defense the ability to call up a higher level of reservists for a longer period of time. The level at which we've been operating is a level of presidential authority which permits us under the law to call up to 200,000 members of the Guard and Reserve at any one time for up to 180 days as it stands now, 90 days plus 90 days. We are running out of time for some critical skills in reservists and guard members who have been deployed to the Persian Gulf. We need to keep them for a longer time, and we may also need a slightly higher number. So we go to the next authority in the law. Now, the law says when you click up to the next level of the law, it gives you the authority to call up to 1 million people for as much as 2 years. No intention of calling 1 million people for 2 years. So let me tell you what the authority is that the Secretary has delegated to the military departments under this Presidential Selected Reserve Authority. And I'll give you 2 sets of figures. I'll give you what the current authority they have now under the old provision of up to 200,000, and then I'll give you a column of figures of what the Secretary has given to the military departments under this new level of authority. Is everybody with me so far? Okay. All right, I'll give you each military department, the old authority and the new authority. For the Army, under the Selected Reserve Authority, 115,000. Under the new Ready Reserve Authority, 220,000. For the Navy, under the Selected Reserve, the limit was 30,000. Under the new Ready Reserve limit, 44,000. For the Marine Corps, the old authority, 23,000. The new authority, 44,000. For the Air Force, the old Selected Reserve Authority, 20,000. The new Ready Reserve Authority, 52,000. For the Coast Guard, and this is a level that has to be set by the Secretary of Transportation because he has the jurisdiction over the Coast Guard. The old authority was 1,250, and I don't believe the Secretary of Transportation has set a new authority yet for the Coast Guard. So you add that all up, and you get a maximum call-up authority under the old authority that has expired or that's been really subsumed by the new one. You get the old level of 189,250. And you get the new call-up authority given to the military departments of 360,000. Now let me just throw another couple of numbers at you. I said a moment ago that the old authority, under which we were operating for most of this week, was a maximum of 189,250. We have called to active duty so far 161,887. So as you can see, we were about to hit the ceiling there of how many could be called up at any one time. A couple of other things to note about this. We have said by instruction to the military departments, by the Secretary's order to the military departments, that what we'll do is basically take all the people that have been called up so far under the old authority and switch them over to the new one. So this is not in addition to, this takes everything we've already sent and puts it under the new authority. And we've said that all those who have been called up will serve only a maximum of 1 year from the point at which they were called to active duty. So what that means is that someone called up under the old authority in August, we're saying we won't keep them beyond a maximum of August of this year. Any questions on that? Yes, sir.
Are there any considerations for hardships? Because a lot of these people are single parents, people who have other jobs in the military just cannot, provide enough income for them. Will there be any considerations made for people like this?
Yes, there will. We feel it's important to give the military department some flexibility in dealing with hardship cases. Let me give you an example. What we get under this new authority, under the old authority we could call up members of the selected reserve. That's the trained up drill status members of the military reserves and guard. You add to that under this new level authority the ready reserve. That's individual ready reservists, people who signed up for a military hitch. Let's say they signed up for an 8-year hitch and they didn't serve all 8. And now they're back, they're back home working in a civilian job. They still have some unexpired time of commitment to the military. So you could call them up, even though they're not in a regular guard unit, even though they don't drill, even though they don't get paid. Well, you could have a thing where, let's say, there's 4 doctors working somewhere, and the Navy goes after 2 of them, and the Marine Corps goes after 1, and the Army goes after 1, and they take all 4 doctors out of this town or hospital or something like that. We've given the military departments the flexibility to deal with those sorts of things.
What this boils down to is that you can call about 200,000 more, right? You take
170,000 more. 170,750 more.
Right, but since you've reached the ceiling of, you were about to, let's see, you've called up 161.
You just, yeah.
Yeah, so 360 minus 161.
That's right.
Would there be a year's limit on their term of service as well, or have you decided that?
Yes.
This is the new authority that the services had.
Right.
Is it anticipated that the services will more or less fully exercise this authority so that we will have 360,000 Americans called up on the reserve?
While the Secretary delegates to the military departments the authority to call up this maximum, he doesn't just snatch the numbers out of the air. He relies on them and says, how many do you think you'll need? So this is a number that each military department has drawn up, and they're going to be the ones that have to decide how many they're going to call up. And I don't know whether they intend to call up the maximum here. Okay, 1 or 2 more, and then we'll move on to General Kelly.
I just want to ask you one additional question on the Patriot, if we could.
Okay.
We just got the first pictures of the Patriots arriving in Israel.
Right.
Could you explain exactly the limitations, how this type of system works, what it's designed to do, and what it's not designed to do? There's a sense that maybe all of Israel could be protected by this, but I guess that's not the case.
Well, there's some limitations on what I can discuss in the capabilities. Let me, we've got some fact sheets on the Patriots. Let me, for the sake of moving on here, say that we'll offer those to you after the briefing.
Can you just I'm sorry, but
Sure.
just to clarify one further question on the Patriot. If I understood your answer to an earlier question, the intention, I may have misunderstood this, is the intention that Israelis will be trained to operate these Patriots that are coming from Europe, or are those only to be operated by Americans?
The Patriots that arrive today will be operated primarily by the U.S. troops who arrived with them. They will assist Israeli Defense Forces in operating them. I mean, we'll clearly work very closely together on these.
There's no intention to train the Israelis in operating them and turn over the operating of those weapon systems to the Israelis.
That is correct. However, I must hasten to add that there is a program underway now to train Israeli Defense Forces on the Patriots, which they've already acquired. That's a separate matter.
Patriots. So as long as these Patriots are there to defend Israel against Scud attack, Americans will be there operating them.
Correct.
Another quick question on the Patriots, Pete.
Let me just amend my answer to Michael's question. That's the agreement which we have right now. Obviously, we can always go back and change it.
How much has the force that was, the Patriot force that was in being in Israel before increased now?
That would require me to get into specific numbers, and I'm not going to do that.
I'm just asking, has it doubled? Has it tripled?
Yeah, I can't characterize it. Okay, last one, Mark.
Can you give us a status report on the Turkey's acquisition of Patriot missiles, where they stand on that?
I'll have to check on that. I don't know. Let me turn over now the operational questions to Lieutenant General Tom Kelly, Director of Operations of the Joint Staff, and also Rear Admiral Mike McConnell, who's the Director of Intelligence for the Joint Staff. And they can, you going to have a statement to Tom? Okay, they'll answer your questions.
We'll just say we're less than 3 days into the operation, and we're over 460,000 U.S. military in the theater.
General Kelly.
Sir.
Has there yet been any sign that the Iraqi troops in Kuwait have started to pull out? That's the goal of this whole thing, after all.
Kuwaiti theater, yeah, that's correct. No, I have seen no indication of any pullout by Iraqi troops.
Can you tell us, sir, about the reports that you're now going after the Republican Guards more energetically?
Yes.
Could you elaborate?
We'll try to hammer them just as hard as we can. The campaign is orchestrated. The first objectives represented certain things: command and control, air defense, air superiority. We're beginning to achieve some of that, so as the chairman said on TV, we can begin to shift the focus of the air campaign somewhat. Doesn't mean we're going to stop doing what we were doing initially. Yes, sir.
General, does Iraq hold any prisoners of war?
Not to my knowledge.
General, U.S. or anyone else? Any other allied forces?
I think they've still got some Iranian prisoners of war. I'm not sure about that, but I don't know that they hold any prisoners of war from the Allied force.
Follow up on that. An Iraqi diplomat was called to the State Department to discuss treatment of prisoners of war. Is that just, in advance of something that might happen, or?
You'd really have to ask the State Department. That would be my surmise.
General, we've had some conflicting, confusing reports about exactly what is the current capability of the Iraqi Air Force. Could you give us an update on what you believe has been done by the coalition forces to the Iraqi Air Force and its operational abilities? We've also heard reports that they're using highways since they can't use runways. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, first, I think that we have the capability to gain and maintain air superiority in any sector of Iraq in which we wish to operate. They have moved, as you may know, some of their aircraft further north. They have always had plans to use sections of highways as dispersal airfields. Many nations do that. I think the air campaign vis-a-vis the Iraqi Air Force is going quite well, going just about the way we expected it to, and we're satisfied with the results. They are not bearding us very much.
Well, as a follow-up, how much of the Air Force, can you give us some assessment of how much the Air Force has either been actually destroyed or rendered ineffective by reason of being trapped in their underground bunkers or whatever?
I'm not sure we can give you very much on that. I think CENTCOM gave some figures this morning on the number of aircraft shot down, relatively few compared to the Iraqi Air Force. Mike, do you want to take a try at the attrition?
Bomb damage assessment is one of the more difficult aspects of following up in the campaign effort. And we've been inhibited somewhat. The information frequently is from a gun camera or what comes back from the actual flight. And weather has been a major problem for us. I can share with you that of the times that the Iraqis have chosen to engage, they currently have lost 10 and of course 0 on the coalition side. For the most part, when discussing air forces, it's useful to think about it in terms of air defense system. And currently their air defense system in the west and south is weakened significantly, and they have moved their efforts further north. Bear in mind that the Iraqis have never faced Western well-trained forces, and they're finding a force that they cannot contend with.
But can you say have a lot of these aircraft been destroyed on the ground or before they even got up? I mean, obviously shooting, they haven't engaged us very much, so we don't know. Apparently they're not losing many in the air. Have we destroyed a lot of their Air Force on the ground?
I think, as Mike said, we've had difficulty with the bomb damage assessment. We call that BDA. Because of the weather over there, we're trying to get more information in all the time. But the fact of the matter is that their air defense system is no longer successful in major portions of the country.
Are you shifting now from the strategic phases of bombing to tactical at this point? And if so, what other tactical targets might you be looking for?
Well, of course, we're not going to discuss very much what kind of targets we're looking for. The chairman said we were going to begin to hit the Republican Guard more. That's a very important part of their military capability, the Republican Guard. We are continuing the strategic campaign. We are also working very hard on the Scud threat. Those three things are...
General Kelly, there are reports that the Air Force bombers and the Allied Force bombers are returning with more of the bombs on the planes and not being used. Is time running out for the use of the Air Force to take out these Scud missiles, and do you anticipate now having to go in using more ground forces or whatever to take out that threat?
Well, I don't accept your basic point that more and more aircraft are coming back with their ordnance still aboard. If an airplane goes out and can't find its target, or there's something wrong with its system, it's not going to expend the ordnance unnecessarily. Remember, one of the things we're trying to be very careful about is not causing excessive casualties during this campaign. But as I said yesterday, we feel that our air campaign is being about 80% successful, and we are very satisfied with that. We are still using the air primarily, still using the air period, to look for the Scuds, and we plan to continue to do that.
General, could us follow along those same lines? Could you walk us through what you are currently doing to try and track down all the Scuds and what problems you're encountering?
And what are the numbers of how many you've destroyed?
The short answer is everything we can. We're conducting reconnaissance. Remember, the weather is bad in western Iraq right now. That's where the Scuds have been launched at Israel from. We are conducting reconnaissance. We have aircraft up. We are covering the area constantly. We have Scud watches going on in theater and other places. And we think that eventually we will be successful and reduce the Scud threat. I think it's instructive to note that on the first night there were, I think, 8 fired. On the second night there were 3 fired. We worked it very hard since the second night. As was indicated by Mr. Williams, we're also putting some capability in Israel to counter those missiles. If they get there, we hope that they're not going to get there.
But what are the problems you're encountering as you try to go after these?
Finding them. It's, you know, the Sink said, Commander-in-Chief said yesterday, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. The mobile launchers are quite easy to hide. He had more than a few months or 5 months to hide them. He had a couple of years if that's when he, in fact, planned to attack. But we are searching for them, as I said, assiduously, and we hope to find them.
Yesterday you were reluctant to say that the United States and the Allies had already achieved air superiority. But today you indicate that the United States does have air superiority. In the vernacular, does that mean the United States and the Allies now own the skies over Iraq?
What I said was that we can achieve air superiority in any area that we elect to go into. As I meant to say yesterday, if I didn't make it clear, they have moved their aircraft to the north. So if we go up to the north, we have to encounter those aircraft. They're there. I think we can encounter them, and I think we can defeat them anytime we want to. So I'd say you're somewhere between extensive local air superiority and air superiority.
Can I follow that up? When you say they move them to the north, what do they have in the north? Do they have facilities, air bases, or are they just on highways?
Mike, that's...
They have facilities throughout the country, and I believe they moved them to the north because we're operating from the south. If we go to the north, then they're going to run out of places to go.
Aren't you operating in the north, though, out of Turkey, or is that unsuccessful today?
The operations in the north are not unsuccessful. However, they're relatively new, so we haven't established the kind of effort that we have in the south.
General,
Yes, sir.
I'm finding a conflict in information. The last couple of days I've heard 80% successful on bombing raids. I keep hearing this figure. Unfortunately, none of us here are seeing that information you're seeing, which tells you it's 80% successful. When can the media, and directly, when can the American people plan to see bomb damage assessment, meaning planes smashed on the ground, bunkers torn up, airfields torn up, supply facilities torn up in unclassified photos, or gun camera, which was shown on CNN? It's not that I hate to say I'm unconfident about it, but unless I can see it firsthand, I'm disinclined to believe both of you. I'm not impugning either one of you.
Understand. As was just said about 2 minutes ago, we're having difficulty with the damage assessment because of the weather. When the information is available, we'll make it available to you.
Pilots haven't been able to tell you. I mean, when a pilot unloads ordnance, he's going to tell you, I hit it or I didn't. His camera will say, I hit it or I didn't. We've had 3.5 days now.
I am making available to you what I have available to me, so
You haven't seen anything? You haven't seen those bomb damage assessments? Admiral, could you fill us in, please? I'm just trying to get a handle on this.
The difficulty is having the photo in front of you. Bear in mind that what you've seen so far with the precision-guided systems on television allows you to see that. If you're a fast-moving airplane dropping weapons that are free-fall bombs, you don't have that same advantage. Now, not to impugn my fellow compatriots, comrades in arms, but when you are in the excitement of battle with the adrenaline, if I took every report and counted a kill on every report I received, the Iraqi Air Force would have been eliminated a long time ago. My responsibility is to sort that out piece by piece. And I think we're sharing with you the characterization of what we know that's accurate as best we can without revealing everything we have in terms of capability that would be of assistance to the other side.
CENTCOM for those hard figures and hopefully provide them.
we are asking CENTCOM for data. We are analyzing that data when we get it, and we will make it available when we are authorized to do that.
General Kelly, we've heard that U.S. and allied forces have had to retarget sites 3 or 4 times. Is it your understanding that some of the hits have only resulted in very light damage to targets?
Again, you're back into the BDA question. We don't have all the answers on it. We do have indications that the attacks have been very successful. Certain targets have been retargeted. I wouldn't want to characterize that as being excessive, but we knew from day one that we would have to go back in there. You know, it's a difficult equation to get all the bombs exactly where you want them, but I would say we've achieved great success.
One or two more.
Just let me offer a comment to follow up. If your objective is to get to Baghdad, and there are air defenses between where you're leaving from and Baghdad, you want to suppress those aircraft, for example. So you may damage a runway, but that's temporary damage. So hit the runway, it's out of commission, they can't launch airplanes. You can go do your mission, return safely to your place of origin.
As we listen to this news conference, we're going to show you some pictures that were shot from a French Mirage plane, nose cone pictures of the destruction of an ammo dump. We've just received these pictures.
Either of you entertain any realistic hope of the possibility that the airstrikes against the Iraqi forces in Kuwait will be so substantial and that the Iraqi army will surrender without a U.S. ground assault?
I've never not hoped that. I'm a soldier, you know, and I've done that for a living, and I would hope that we don't have to do it. But as I said yesterday, you must maintain the capability to do it in the final analysis in the event that the air is not successful. We do hope, everybody hopes, that the air will be successful and they'll all surrender, but we don't know that's going to happen.
General, a question about the Republican Guard attacks, which you said you just shifted your focus to. Can you give us any indication of how effective that has been? Do you have any initial reports to give you a sense of how it's going?
I'd say that command and control has been affected. There's a lot of units in the field. It's going to take a lot of time to get all of that done. Mike, do you want to add anything to that?
Just to note that there have been some secondary explosions, and recall that we're dealing with over 500,000 men dug in the ground that have had 5 months to prepare. So being dug in, it will take some time to dig them out.
These pictures shot from a French Mirage fighter. This is an ammunition dump.
No, we're saying that there's 500,000 people in the theater. We know what the Republican Guards are. They are obviously a priority target. We're going after them, but they're dug in. They're in armored vehicles, many of them, and so it's pretty tough to get them out, but we think we'll do it.
When we came into the briefing, there were air raid signs going off in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. Has the Pentagon detected any new missile firing?
We have not, and we checked that the minute we saw on television that they were going on, and it was not
And should
an
Saddam
additional launch.
Hussein be pleased with the way his forces have been reacting and fighting, and why not, if not?
His forces haven't been doing that much fighting yet. If you're talking about his ground forces, we haven't gone after them. If I were Saddam Hussein, I certainly would not be proud of what my forces have done.
Thank you all for your questions. Let me just add one other thing in answer to your. Thank you, gentlemen. Let me just add one other thing in answer to the question about why the Iraqis were given a note. The State Department calls these things a démarche today. The reason is that the United States has captured some Iraqi POWs by coalition forces. So the statement I've got, what the State Department has put out on this, it says the following: CENTCOM today has announced the capture of Iraqi POWs by coalition forces. The United States and Iraq are parties to the 1949 Geneva Convention relative to the protection of prisoners of war. As such, both nations are obligated to provide humane treatment of POWs in accordance with the Geneva Convention. The Department of State today gave the Iraqi chargé a diplomatic note informing Iraq that the United States will abide by its obligations under the Geneva Convention and that it expects Iraq to do the same. The United States reminded Iraq of its obligations generally under the laws of armed conflict. At the same time, a diplomatic note was provided regarding the presence of United States military hospital ships in waters off the Arabian Peninsula. So that's the reason that
It expects Iraq to do the same if they catch.
Exactly. And we have no evidence. We have no evidence that they have. One other note here on an earlier thing that I said. I was talking about the fact that under this new level of presidential call-up authority, reservists could be on active duty for a year, and I'm asked just to remind you that that is a year of consecutive service.
Can you give us any detail on the incident with the frigate and the U.S. Army helicopter?
So, Pentagon spokesman Pete Williams announcing first that U.S. personnel will man the new Patriot anti-missile missiles that are being sent to Israel. This is the first time that has happened, and also announcing that the president has officially signed an order giving him the authority to call up more reserves. We want to go now to Tel Aviv for a quick report on the situation there from Tom Fenton. Tom?
Bob, I saw that Galaxy fly in this afternoon with these new model Patriot missiles, and it was a welcome sight indeed. The tragic thing is that they didn't arrive here sooner. Some observers say there were discussions 10 days ago with the administration, and those missiles could have been here 10 days ago, but for a dispute over which model the Israelis would get and whether or not they would be totally banned by Americans. But be that as it may, they're certainly welcome.
And Tom, one other development is I'm told that the air raid sirens that went off earlier this afternoon, that proved to be a false alarm.
I forgot to mention it. That's right. They went off about 3 hours after sunset. That's only the first, I suspect, of what may be more this evening. It's become a nightly routine. Some are false alarms, and some, unfortunately, aren't.
All right, thank you. Tom Fenton in Tel Aviv. Well, that's the latest we have on the situation in the Persian Gulf. Let's go back now to basketball. Here's Andrea Joyce. Andrea.
And the second half of the games that you were watching here on CBS are well underway. First of all, let's update you on number 6, Arizona, on the road at Villanova. Arizona is now leading Villanova. That game, as we said, well into the second half. And at the Coleman Coliseum in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, it's Georgia and the Crimson Tide, and Alabama is leading that game. That game's now in the second half. Score 51-47. Now, we will get you back to college basketball.